else is worse than expected. And I just want to say one thing to start the show, okay? Because I got a lot of ish for this over the summer, and this is not a victory lap in any way, shape, or form. Not a victory lap. But what I'm saying is, this is why I was so upset when they announced on August 30th or whatever it was that Drake May was not going to be the starter and that Jacoby Brissett was going to be the starter for the New England Patriots. This is why. Because this is what I was worried about. This. What they showed on that day in August was symptoms of complete buffoonery. I mean, that day, they put on display everything you didn't want to see out of the next head coach of the Patriots. Lack of conviction, poor decision-making, poor evaluation, poor presentation, all of the above was put on display in that one moment. And that is why I said at the time on this show, Joe Murray Show, that the Patriots organization was put more at risk because of all of those factors than had Drake May been the starting quarterback behind a suspect offensive line. And everybody was worried about that. Oh, he's going to get killed. They were worried about the 22-year-old stud, and I get it. But the ineptitude that was on display in that moment worried me far more than anything Drake May could have experienced playing behind the offensive line or playing as a rookie. That's the reality, and now here we are. All of that dysfunction that was foreshadowed back in August has now come to the forefront. And now, here we are trying to figure out what the Patriots need to do in order to really save their stud rookie quarterback. Okay? That's why, again, this wasn't about when I was banging the table for Drake May to start. It wasn't because I was just obsessed and impatient and wanted to play with the shiny new toy. That's not what it was. I was based on what we had seen and what Jacoby Brissett was and looking at the Patriots as a whole. You knew that they did not have the infrastructure in place to put Jacoby Brissett back there and to have him sustain a season as quarterback with the number 3 overall pick on the bench. I mean, for crying out loud, the Atlanta Falcons couldn't even do that. And Felger and others raved about what they were doing. I thought it was a better move than what the Patriots did in terms of who they had. I didn't like the money in the contract. But they didn't even do it. I mean, Kirk Cousins just got benched, and now you're going to Penix. The Patriots certainly, at least with Cousins, you thought you had a chance at the playoffs or sustaining it, and it looked early like they were going to. I don't know what happened to them. Complete disaster. But with the Patriots, you knew, baby, that was not going to be able to be sustainable. You knew that. Everyone knew it, yet the guy, Gerard Mayo, still, whoever was in charge, still went with Jacoby Brissett. With the situation they had, that was a disgrace. And it was the first sign that this coaching staff, that this regime had no freaking clue what they were doing. And that's why I was so upset. That's why I was so upset. It wasn't because I was obsessed with the idea of Drake May playing. That's not what it was about. My biggest fear was this. Now here we are. We're in a situation where everybody thinks the coach is completely inept, and now we're discussing and we're having on every show a conversation about what do the Patriots do next, and it's going to be my next segment. What do the Patriots do next? What do they do now? Should they bring back Gerard Mayo? Should they fire him? Should they get new coordinators and keep Mayo? Are the Crafts pissed? I mean, these are conversations that I don't want to have, especially with a quarterback. I don't want to expose him to this, but they leave me no choice. They leave all of us no choice. We have to have these conversations. And it started on August 30th when they chose to put in Jacoby Brissett over Drake May, when they knew that wasn't going to be able to be sustained. They knew it. And to top it off, they could have done that and made that error in a vacuum. And that would have been bad enough. But no, they compounded it by what? By calling it a competition, an open competition, and the best guy's going to play. We're going to play the best guy. Then the best guy proved to be not Jacoby Brissett, yet he played. So you looked even worse. And now here we are in a puddle of our own vomit, all of us discussing what's going to happen with the coaching staff next year. Not ideal, not where I wanted them to be, not where we should be. And on top of all that, you got this quarterback who everyone likes, everyone thinks is a stud, and you put him at risk, and I don't even know. I mean, is he going to – we had people talking about, Maz and Joe and Jim were talking about, is he going to be able to reach his potential here? You know what I was thinking about when we were doing headlines, or I heard the headlines at 5 o'clock or something, and Joe read the injury report. It made me sad when Joe read the injury report because, and now I'm just bitching, but the injury report used to mean something to me. You know, like I used to actually be concerned with who was on the injury report. Do you know why? Because usually, especially post-Thanksgiving, with the New England Patriots would be on the precipice of a big, important game. So who was on the injury report was critical. You know, it was a noteworthy piece of news. Now, who gives a rip? Really? I mean, JaMychal Hasty was added to the... I mean, who cares? Who cares that JaMychal Hasty was added to the injury report for a game that is... I mean, a 14-point underdog in Buffalo? 14. Which, by the way, is crazy to think about how the 2001 Patriots that went to that Super Bowl 36, they were 14-point underdogs to the Rams in the Super Bowl? That team? That's a wild line, wild number, thinking way back, but that's beside the point. This is a disgrace. There should never be a 14-point spread in the National Football League. That's a total embarrassment. But here we are. And when we get back, we're not going to break quite yet, but when we do come back from the next for the next segment, we're going to talk about what the Patriots have to do now. Because is the coach going to make it? The Red Sox, we can't cross sports. Yeah, we can. The Red Sox, they got rid of Bobby Valentine after 1 year worked out. Should the Patriots do the same thing? What's that going to mean for the organization? What's that going to mean for the perception of the owners? There's a lot to this. There's a lot to this. This has been an unacceptable year. It's sickening. I'm sick. Of just talking about these narratives. Okay? It bites. Merry Christmas. Damn it. I mean, they used to play important games down the stretch. Do you remember that? Big Sunday night football, Al Michaels, marquee matchups, playoff implications, all that used to happen. Now it's nothing. It's just, bah. 617-779-0985. I'm not on the screen here. But that's why I wanted Drake May to play. It wasn't so much even about the quarterback, the physical quarterback play. And I knew what Jacoby Brissett was. He was exactly what I thought he would be. It was about the, showing and proving that you're not inept as a coach. And Gerard Mayo has made a ton of mistakes. Tons of mistakes. But it's still, I don't know if that's in the best interest of the organization to part ways with him at this juncture. I feel like that's a level of dysfunction that needs to be considered. But it's a shame that it's come to this. Unbelievable that the games they have lost, the way they've played, the way the defense has looked with Mayo being a defensive guy, just absolutely disgusting. It's a disgusting act. Can't stand it. So what do they do? What do you want the Patriots to do? 617-779-0985. What do you want them to do? And if you have a strong opinion, have you considered all the options? Have you considered what would happen if they move on from the head coach after 1 year? And based on their potential, is it something they should seriously consider? Because I'm going to tell you this. The biggest, most negative development this whole year continues to be the fact that they whiffed on the entire draft class outside of May. That's still the biggest development of the season and the most negative one. You can find other coaches. There are other things you could do. A coach could grow. A coach can learn. A coach can consult. The fact that they had the top pick or the top 5, that top 5 pick and couldn't get anything done in the draft again outside of Drake May, who, fell to them. That's the biggest indictment on this season, and it's brutal. (617-779-0985). If you want to talk about the Celtics or the NBA, that's on the table. Celtics are going to start, so get that in. What should the Patriots do? I'm Mark Dondero in for Joe on the Joe Murray Show, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
I don't think you should make the move now. It's been not even 1 year. I just feel like you got to give it more time, and you got to make a move on the coordinators. You have to. You cannot run it back. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't even want to hear that term. The term makes me sick when I think about this situation. You have to make a move, and it has to be, to me, the defensive coordinator, DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, I don't see how you could ever even think about coming back with the same crew. Not after this year, not after it's gone so far south. It's just impossible to do. I have severe reservations about Gerard Mayo all across the board. Every aspect of his ability to coach. I do think he's okay with the players. Okay, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because I do think that he did approach coaching and head coaching different than, say, Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels, in that he's trying to develop some sort of a relationship before maybe he really gets his program up and running, and maybe that's year 2. It's a stretch. I get it. But I'm gonna lean on that. It's a level of dysfunction I don't want to see with the Patriots right now. 1 year, fire the coach, try again, and there's no guarantee they're going to get it. I'm not going to look. I think Mike Vrabel would probably be better. I want an offensive guy. Like, I wish they hired an offensive guy. I'd go offense. Vrabel, I think, commands the room more. He operates with more conviction. He's got much more swag. I think that I would like the team to feed off of the energy of a Mike Vrabel more than a Gerard Mayo based on what I've seen this year. But I still think doing that doesn't guarantee anything. And you're still dealing with a defensive guy. I don't know if Josh McDaniels would come along. That would be better. Too many things. Because coordinators can be year to year, I would try to switch up some of the coordinators or make that move there and go from what you have now to something different, especially defensively. There is no excuse. We're not even talking. Don't even come into the office. Can't even do that because can't believe where they've fallen defensively. Gino's in the car. Hey, Gino.
Hey, Mark, what's going on?
What's up,
I understand what you're saying about, the 1 year mark with Gerard Mayo, but respectfully, I just have to disagree because I think that when you have a coach who goes onto the podium and makes the mental errors that he does and gets the media buzzing, and especially when you're going to throw your offensive coordinator, by the way, who has, in a way, I'm not accusing him of being Kyle Shanahan, but in a way has progressed Drake May and has seen, with the exception of last week, steady improvement every single week. And you're going to throw that guy under the bus when you refuse to take over defensive play calling, when you have a coordinator who does not know what he's doing clearly on that end of the football. I mean, look, I gave Gerard Mayo the benefit of the doubt several times. I understand, but I don't think the culture he's setting when he's saying it's okay to throw guys under the bus, like Booty blaming Drake May for that interception when he dropped it. Like, you're setting the example as the head coach that it is okay to do things like that. And I see nothing but disastrous things long-term if you keep Gerard Mayo around.
It's a fair take. It's a fair take, and it's hard to argue with. I'm going to say this about the culture, and obviously the head coach is a big part of what the culture of the football team is. A bigger part of that will be Drake May. Okay, that's going to be it's huge because what Drake May instills in his teammates is everything. I mean, again, we're not here to litigate this, but Bill Belichick, we can talk about the Patriot way and all these different things, and of course he was a big part of their success, and we're not here to bash on Bill. Tom Brady was the guy. Tom Brady was the guy. We work for Bill, we play for Tom. Danny Amendola. That said it all right there, and we knew that before that quote came out. Tom Brady was the guy that everybody followed. The practice habits, the practice perfection, the demanding of excellence, all those things were Brady's doing, not Bill Belichick. I'm sorry. Belichick was there. Belichick had a hand in it. He kept everyone accountable. He had the quizzes when you'd pass by him in the hallway and all these different things. It was the quarterback. Why do you think the Green Bay Packers, with all that talent that Aaron Rodgers had for all of those years, the most talented guy in the league, the most talented quarterback ever, go back 7-8 years, why do you think they didn't just win one Super Bowl? Okay? Not they won one Super Bowl. They got to one Super Bowl. That's the most damning thing about Rodgers of all. It's hard to win the Super Bowl. But a lot of times you'll see a bad quarterback drag a bad coach or a bad defense to the Super Bowl multiple times, especially if you're on the level of Aaron Rodgers with that talent. He only went to one Super Bowl. It's because he couldn't lead. He was a garbage teammate. The culture he created sucked. Everything about that. And we're seeing it now in New York, especially now that his physical assets aren't what they were. Drake May is going to be the biggest part of that culture. And I just feel like Mayo has been bad, but 1 year is really hard to stomach for a guy that's been in the organization that long, that had good defenses when he was running the defense with Steve Belichick. I don't know what happened to that. And maybe, I feel like you could give him one more chance based on what you're trying to become as an organization and not a group that just fires somebody after 1 year. Peter is in Rhode Island. Hey, Peter. I just dropped him. Sorry, Peter. Call back. My fault. Nolan's in Spencer. Hey, Nolan.
Hi. I wanted to agree with you on Gerard Mayo's job status, but not for the reason of not wanting turnover within the coaching staff and becoming one of those organizations. The Patriots roster is not just bad. It is the worst in the league, if not maybe second or third. I don't think you can get a fair evaluation of Gerard Mayo with that roster. And all the talking heads, especially the local ones, they'll mention it, but there's a difference between just mentioning it before you give your take and actually applying it to your analysis. I don't think Gerard Mayo is getting a fair shake at all.
Okay. Well, that's fair. But yes, you can evaluate Gerard Mayo even with this roster. Okay, the team has been undisciplined. He's made unbelievable mistakes at the podium. And just his whole approach, I'm going to be the opposite of Belichick approach, didn't work. This being open and friendly with the media and, he's probably sending him Christmas cards and all these different things. No. It's not your job to accommodate the media. Stop being so friendly. I hated that, and now I'm just, look, it's a tough sell. It is. I just feel like based on what the organization wants to be, you need to try to give him one more season to turn things around now that you have the quarterback, and you hope that you can make a little bit of hay in the draft and get some actual talent in through a pipeline of guys that you can bring up organically. It's a tough sell. He's done a lot wrong. Not many game plans to look at, and there's still 3 weeks to go. It could get even worse. Coming out of the bye to look like they did in Arizona, I have no clue. Change some things. I don't understand why Gerard Mayo didn't try to take more control over the defense. Especially if this was a coach that you wanted to be a part of your program. Why aren't you helping him? Why aren't you taking more control over what you're doing on that side of the ball and not having it be this disaster? You signed up all these guys. You re-upped a lot of these players, and you were here. It's not like Gerard Mayo came in and didn't know any of these players. You knew these players. They played for you. You knew what you were getting into. You knew who you had in that foxhole. Why is it so bad? Peter's in Rhode Island. Hey, Peter. Sorry.
Hey, I just wanted to support your point about why Mayo can't be fired and the need to get rid of defensive coordinator. But I want to link this to something you said before the break, which is they whiffed on the draft. That means that Elliott Wolf has got to go. We've got to acquire more talent, and Wolf was responsible, and we need a real GM and a real draft scouting system because you can't not have talent. That's the biggest sin of all.
That is the worst thing about this year. Yes, the draft was brutal, especially when you're drafting at the top of the second round, at the top of the third round. Now, I'm not ready to completely dismiss everybody they got, every prospect, all the linemen, Layden Robinson, Caden Wallace, even Jalen Polk. I'll leave the door open. I'll look under the bottom crack of the door for some daylight with him. But, who I'd love to see go, no offense? The guy who was the guy that was like, yeah, you want fast players? You draft fast. Who is that? Is that Matt Groh? Get that guy out of here. He can't do anything. I'm sick of hearing that name. I don't want to hear any names like that associated with a kid that Belichick coached with. Get him out. And I know Elliott Wolf is the son of a guy, but he was in the Packers organization. Look, you're going to be on the clock next year. You have to draft better. You're going nowhere. I don't care. Every team that's good now in the NFL has drafted great. Kansas City on defense and on the line has drafted pretty well. Obviously, the Detroit Lions have drafted great. How about some of the draft picks that the Baltimore Ravens have made? Great drafts. You know, the Bills are good. They've had some good draft picks. Even some of their guys that they've, even a guy like, not that Dalton Kincaid is a star, but, they've gotten good draft picks that they've been able to keep their team afloat. And they have Josh Allen, which obviously helps, playing at the level he's playing. I'm just saying you're not going anywhere unless you draft. And there's too many things that this team did poorly, I think, to not give Mayo another year. And especially look at what Belichick did. He was 5-11, then he was 0-2, and then Brady came in. Everything changed. I mean, he was as bad as Gerard Mayo for the most part. I don't remember every game as intimately from the year 2000, but it was bad. And their roster was way better. And he was 5-11. Way better. 5-11 with the roster that essentially won the Super Bowl. 617-779-0985. Mark Dondero here on the Joe Murray Show, in for Joe.
Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots are back on the practice field today as the Pats get set for the matchup with the Bills in Orchard Park Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Christian Barmore, meanwhile, was placed on the non-football injury list with recurring symptoms from blood clots. As I said earlier, that's a -14 line in favor of the Bills in that game. That's a big one. Celtics are back in action tonight when they host the Chicago Bulls. Kristaps Porzingis, who had been listed as questionable all day, will play tonight. And the Bruins also in action. They're on the road in Edmonton. Jeremy Swayman will be in goal as the Bees, they go for their third straight win as they continue to go through this road trip out west. Sports Hub Headlines is brought to you by Cape Cod Cafe, the original bar pizza. Order gift cards and frozen pizzas online now at CapeCodCafePizza.com. Find them at your local grocer or enjoy at one of their 4 Massachusetts locations. Cape Cod Cafe, bar pizza perfection. I'm Mark Dondero for Boston's Home for Sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Next update, 30 minutes.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray.
That would give me some hope if that's the case. Okay, the Patriots, one of the things they have to change other than the defensive coordinator, they have to change the hierarchy within the organization or whatever the hell's going on. Because and I've asked this question before, how does a guy like Alex Van Pelt, AVP, I only hear AVP. How does Alex Van Pelt come in from wherever he came from, Cleveland, as the 12th option or the 10th choice or whatever he was, and you start treating him like he's Theo Epstein of the NFL? How does that happen? Who put him with this much power? Who gave this to him? I mean, why isn't Gerard Mayo, the guy that's been here, why isn't he unequivocally in charge of who the quarterback is going to be? Why is he answering, seemingly, I know Elliot Wolf is involved, why is he answering to Alex Van Pelt, who was the 15th choice on the Patriots short list or whatever? I'm exaggerating. Their 12th choice. How did anyone let that happen? I mean, if you want to be collaborative, that's fine. But you need definitive roles. The head coach is the first guy. He's where it stops. That should be non-negotiable, very easy to understand. And yet, Gerard Mayo is acting like he's got to talk to 7 different people to make any decision. That's got to go away. And maybe it will if he makes it to his second year. You need him to be the man. He makes the call. Can't be leaning on some coordinator that I'm not going to say you didn't even want, but a guy that was so far down the short list, he wasn't even on a short list. It was a long list. Jonathan is in Easton. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, how you doing, Mark?
What's up, man?
I really agree because I've been talking about culture, and when I hear everybody knocking Mayo about talking about culture, that's very important to get the locker room. But a lot of this goes back to Brady Belichick because that was a dual culture they built. Belichick built the culture of winning and how to win, work hard, all that stuff. Brady was the glue. Everybody wanted to come play for Brady. 2 different dynamics built a dynasty. Not saying we're going to get to a dynasty. May's showing me that somehow, whatever Mayo's doing this year, I'm seeing stuff already in May. I'm not saying we're seeing a Belichick, let's not compare, but I see that that's the piece that I see building, the 2 core pieces, and to break it up now would be a huge mistake, especially with Mayo. Then we'll get another Mac Jones, 3 coaches, 3 this, 3 that. I think you have to keep the offensive coordinator and Mayo for year 2. Defense has to change somewhere. Now, Belichick had his hands deep into the defense. Yes, Mayo probably should have his hands more deeper into the defense because that's been the biggest disappointment to me this year is the frickin' defense. But you got to keep Mayo and the offensive coordinator together for at least another year to see if what we're building is really what we're going to get to because I believe May is the franchise quarterback. What he's showing us this year, that's the most important piece you can't break down.
That's right, and I agree with that, and that's what they need to do. They have to put Drake May in the best position possible. I mean, at all costs, that's what has to happen. And we'll reevaluate after these 3 games and next year. Okay, but first of all, what Jonathan said I don't agree with. It was Tom Brady that created the culture of winning, not Bill Belichick. They were 5-11 and 0-2. That wasn't the culture of winning. And then Brady comes in, all of a sudden they start winning. Okay? Now, Belichick was a perfect sidekick to Brady and his demeanor, and it helped that Brady bought in. If Brady was another guy and didn't buy into what Bill was doing or how he was doing it, I think what it was interesting was Tom Brady might have been less fun than Bill Belichick because we heard all the things about Belichick's no fun. It's not fun playing for the I think Brady might have been less fun. So they got along there. That was where they matched. That's where it worked. But, Belichick was bad after Brady left. He was bad before Brady got here. And, oh, by the way, during a large, or not a large stretch, but a definitive stretch of Tom Brady's time here, the defense went south. 2009 to 2011-ish, they were not very good on defense. Then they, even really what changed it was 2012 when they had the 2 first-round picks and got Hightower and Chandler Jones, and they started to build it up from there. And then by 2014, they had signed some guys in free agency, and the defense came back around. I don't think it was ever as good. The league had changed. But, it Look, it wasn't perfect. Okay, so that's where they are. And they have to maximize Drake May. That's the first thing. Now, it doesn't have to happen next year, but they need to make significant strides next year. And if he's as good as he looks, you should be knocking on the door of a playoff spot. Bob is in the car. Hey, Bob.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. I've really enjoyed the conversation. But my point is that Gerald May's done nothing this year. Everybody's regressed except for May, and May's done it on his own. He hasn't had any help. He doesn't have any receivers. He doesn't have a line. He's done it on his own. But Mayo's done nothing. What kind of team are we going to have? Are we going to have a team that's rough and tough? We're going to have a team that's fast. I have no idea what the team's going to look like.
That's right. He hasn't done anything that adds value this year in the big picture scheme of things. That's a problem. Again, it's a tough sell. I'm leaning on the relationships and the things that he's doing with the players that maybe will put them in a position if he can get the right help around him. Maybe, here's another thing. Maybe this year, because he's a new head coach, he hasn't been able to find a rhythm to help on defense as much. But after going through a season and knowing what worked and what didn't, maybe next year he's more intimately involved. And as a result, the defense plays better. Okay, that fixes that. Then if you get Drake May a little more developed, which, Alex Van Pelt, you could argue that he should be gone. Chris Gasper argued that he should be gone. I'm not going to make that argument. But he did sort of have a hand in developing May to this point. I'm not going to give him a ton of credit because I think May would have gotten here anyway. But he had a little bit of a hand in doing that. So, if he continues to progress and Gerard Mayo's able to work a little bit closer with the defense next year, and if they can hit on maybe a draft pick or two, maybe by year 2 you're on the right track. And again, I don't want to put too much pressure on Drake May, but what level of leadership is he going to exhibit? Is he going to get everybody together in the offseason and demand excellence in every practice? Is he going to set that standard that Brady set? Gerard Mayo's going to have to effectively back him on those things like Belichick did. But again, it's going to be about Mayo and May and his work ethic, Drake May, the quarterback, his work ethic, his example, the standard that he sets. He's the best player. He's the most important position. It's going to come down to him. Sneak in one more. Jason is in Foxborough. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Mark. How you doing? Great listening to you. You made some excellent points. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Bob Kraft. He's handcuffed this organization from the start. The Patriots won in spite of him, not because of him. He caught lightning in a bottle with Belichick and Brady. And what he does is, without the players, if he's cheap. He doesn't want to sign quality players. He made a fuss to go after Calvin Ridley. That was never going to happen. He wanted to make everybody think he was looking. He's too cheap. He fell in love with this idea of getting value players. You need talent. Every coach, what he did was he didn't give Brady the weapons. Brady walks, okay? And we know what happened then. He goes on and wins the Super Bowl. Every coach is only as good as the players. You can name me, it's a chicken of the egg. You can name me any head coach. They all the best ones have players. Gerard Mayo, he's a rookie head coach. He got thrust into the position. The only way you fire him, in my opinion, is if you have Mike Vrabel. Because right now there's nobody out there. Keep him. Open up your wallet, Bob Kraft. That's the only way this team is going to win. You need talented players to win.
And you need them through the draft. Thanks for the call, Jason. You need them through the draft first and foremost. You can't play that game where you're signing guys all the time and opening up the checkbook. No team can play that game and live that life constantly, especially the Patriots if you're talking about the Krafts. It's not going to happen. You have to find a way to draft them. That's really not Gerard Mayo's fault that they whiffed completely. He's put him in part of him to blame, but not completely, that they whiffed seemingly on every pick outside of Drake May. 617-779-0985. Where do you fall on this? Maybe a quick Celtics thought, NBA thought when we get back just before the Celtics get ready to go and they go on to the pregame there on WROR. Mark Dondero in for Joe Murray on the Joe Murray Show, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5.
has been cleared to start in their game this weekend against the Texans. Celtics, they're going to play tonight at home against the Chicago Bulls. Kristaps Porzingis, he will play after being listed all day as questionable. And the Bruins, they're also in action tonight. They're on the road in Edmonton. Jeremy Swayman will be in goal as the Bees go for their third straight win. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Feldman Geospatial, with offices in Boston and Worcester. For all your survey services, you can count on Feldman to get it right from the ground up. FeldmanGeo.com. I'm Mark Dondero for Boston's Home for Sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Next update, 30 minutes.
This is Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown serves the corner. Finger roll is up and good. Score to the foul.
Listen to home of the Boston Celtics. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
All right, hour 2 of the Joe Murray Show as we get you set for the Bruins and Oilers tonight. RJ and Bob on the call. It's back to the phones we go. Jamie's in the car. Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call. I was calling for the Patriots. I just got a quick thing about the three-pointer. I just think it makes offenses soft. We rely too much on it. I think, tell that to the 85 Celtics and see if they say that. But, I think I keep hearing about what I'm getting about the coaching and for the Celtics. And, I'm a kind of a casual, the Patriots, a casual Patriots fan. My mother-in-law is a huge Patriots fan, so I became a fan just so she had someone to talk to. And I don't know why. I know ownership is, Kraft is getting a little bit of heat, but it all begins and ends with them. I mean, you have a new quarterback. You have young players. You need experienced managers, coaches. You need someone who has experience to guide them through this. You can't have a rookie coach coaching rookies and trying to, set a tone when they have no experience. These guys are looking for leadership. I think we've been rebuilding for every couple of years. It's like rebuilding. Cam Newton years, rebuilding. Mac Jones, rebuilding. It really, this isn't the Red Sox. We can't expect other fans to come and fill the stadium and make it, and make them money. It's, this is an ownership issue.
All right, thanks for the call. Listen, first on his Celtics point, I disagree with that. I don't think the Celtics team is soft. I don't think their offense is soft. They shoot a lot of threes, yes. But again, mid-range jumpers. That's what those teams in the 80s used to do. Now, and by the way, I'm sorry, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Dennis Johnson, were they dunking on people at the rim and posterizing cats up? No. They did a lot of, fancy passing, and they were able to get inside and score. That's a complete misnomer. Okay, I don't agree. This is not a soft team. This is not a soft culture with these Celtics. They shoot a lot of threes. You can shoot threes and still have a tough, hard-nosed team, which I think the Celtics have. So I'm not discouraged by the amount of threes. In terms of the Patriots, again, what have you done in the draft? That's where it begins. So you could talk about coaching, you could talk about ownership, you could talk about being cheap and not. All those things are true. You need to hire quality coaches. You need to hire a quality head coach. But are you drafting players that you can control and are financially manageable and all these different things and can play? And, you're getting a Puka Nacua in the 5th round or whatever he was. And you're getting a guy that comes in and makes an immediate impact. They've drafted so poorly. They can't draft. That's their biggest problem. Now, Belichick's first draft wasn't great other than the quarterback. Maybe this will be the same. Maybe Elliott Wolf gets his Richard Seymour next year when he picks 3. When Belichick in 2001 was picking at number 6. John is in the car in the NBA ratings. Hey, John.
Hey, what's up, Mark?
What's up, man?
Mark, in my view, it's very simple. When you get to the NBA playoffs, there's no drama. When was the last time you had an NBA playoff and you said, wow, I can't believe they won the championship? It never happens. The better team always wins, and usually the team with the best player wins the championship. You look at the Stanley Cup Finals, you have no idea when that tournament starts who's going to come out from this side, that side, or put the cup up in the air when it's over. The team, the league's product, in my opinion, when the chips are down and it's not cutting time, look at the Celtics last year, where they lose 3 games, 4 games in all those 4 rounds. There's nothing to hang your hat on. You turn the game on and they're up 15, 20 points halfway through the second quarter. What the hell am I watching? There's no desire to want to hang around and watch that. There's just no draw. And that's every year with the NBA. And for me, that's why I tune out, especially as the year gets later on.
And thanks for the call, Jeff. For a lot of years, you could legitimately put in, at least pencil, who was going to be in the conference championship round in July. As soon as free agency was over, you knew who was going to be in the conference championship. You'd get at least 3 or 4 because it was obvious. The teams that were stacked would make it, and then it was, we'll see who wins. Last year was a little bit different. I mean, usually a team has a little bit more stress on their way to a championship than the Celtics faced last year. But he's not wrong. There is not an element of unpredictability associated with the NBA. And I thought, honestly, in the narrative last year leading into the NBA Finals was the opposite. People were actually genuinely intrigued by the matchup leading into it. Some more than others. I thought the Celtics, would have come out on top. But some people called it the most highly anticipated matchup in the finals in a long time. Based on the way that the Dallas Mavericks got there, how they were playing, and what the Celtics were. And as you know, everybody basically picked the Mavericks to win. So they got that one wrong. But yes, by and large, there is not a lot of mystery associated with the NBA. And the other thing is the playoffs are way too friggin' long. Too long. Okay? Too long. There's no way you should have 4 nights or 3 nights in between games. Okay? Every other game, every other night. And then maybe you can have an extra night on a travel day. That's what it should be. It's a joke. So that doesn't help. So, that's part of it. I do think the NFL kind of taking over has been another part of this that's been meaningful for, all the different things associated with sports. Baseball is lumped into that too. But, it's just, I don't think it's the 3-pointers. But yeah, I don't know when the last true major upset occurred. Major upset. Or when a team went on this unbelievable Cinderella type of run and got to the finals and won the final. I don't remember when that's happened. So, I don't mind the 3-pointers. Just getting back to one of the things one of the callers mentioned. I don't remember what he said. But there was a list that came out today. Oh, I remember what he said. He was talking about ownership being the biggest problem. And that reminded me of a list that ESPN.com released today that they talked about. It was an article about the 32. So they talked about every team in the NFL. Their biggest mistake in the last 5 years. Biggest mistake made by every team. The Patriots' biggest mistake was ranked 9th in the league. And they had the Patriots' biggest mistake in the last 5 years being hiring Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to the offensive staff. That was the Patriots, per ESPN.com. That was their biggest mistake in the last 5 years. Now, I don't agree with that. That was an obvious mistake. I mean, that was brutal. But I don't think that was their biggest mistake. I think their biggest mistake in the last 5 years was easily not choosing Tom Brady over Bill Belichick in January of 2020. And for some reason, people got mad at me online when I said this. That was their biggest mistake. I mean, that was within the last 5 years. January of 2020, which was basically exactly 5 years ago. That was easily their biggest mistake. They might have won another championship. They might not have, but it doesn't even matter because what you did buy into, what you did invest in was the wrong thing. With respect to Bill Belichick, the legend, it was the wrong move. He was not equipped to handle life post Tom Brady. He didn't do well. That's not an opinion. He didn't do well in post Tom Brady life. By the way, can somebody with the Patriots... I don't even care. Gerard Mayo, no matter what he does, no matter if he comes back or doesn't come back this next year, if they fire his ass, whatever happens, please do me a favor, Gerard. And whoever you get fired with, if you get fired, this is what you do. You immediately start a podcast about North Carolina football. And you can critique every aspect of Belichick and his pursuits and whatever you want to call it down at North Carolina. Because now that his boys are all down there, can we stop with this? Like, I don't need your commentary on the Patriots. Go recruit someone. Okay? Go call somebody's mama and have their pumpkin pie or whatever. Go do something productive. Sit in a living room at some house in Red Bay, Alabama. That was the biggest mistake that the Patriots made in the last 5 years, choosing Bill Belichick over Tom Brady and making the mistake that it was Bill Belichick who established or who was the one behind the Patriot way. That was not the case, and it would have been better to stick with Tom Brady for whatever it would end up being, 3 more years. 2 more years, 3 more years, 3 more years. You played 3 years in Tampa, right? You never know what could have happened in those 3 years. Would have been different. The dynasty, all those, like the different. Who knows if you would have had that document? I don't know all the different things that would have spawned off of had you stuck with Brady, but that was easily the biggest mistake. He wasn't done. He still had a Super Bowl left in him. The ending wouldn't have been as messy as it was. You would never have had the experience as Mac Jones garbage, all this stuff that happened. The ineptitude, Cam Newton, like none of that would have happened had Brady stuck around. And it would have affected your legacy different, Bob. It would have been a better thing for your legacy, honestly, if you had picked Tom Brady. The biggest blunder in the NFL in the last 5 years, according to this article, and I can't argue with it, the Cleveland Browns trading for Deshaun Watson and signing him to a 5-year, $230 million, I believe, fully guaranteed contract. Easily and obviously the biggest mistake. Denver trading for Russell Wilson is on the list. I think this was a little high. I think part of it is because they extended him. That was the problem. I don't know if I'd put that as the number 2. The Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers was the 3rd biggest mistake in the last 5 years. 4th biggest mistake, I can't argue with this either. The 49ers trading 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance. That is a brutal move, and they've been good ever since. So maybe the future hasn't been as compromised as that, but that is a brutal haul for a nobody, a guy that ended up at a nothing, a Gio Carmazzi. That was devastating. And then at 5, it's Carolina doing what they did, trading DJ Moore and multiple first-round picks to the Bears for Bryce Young. Now, that's not looking quite as bad now because Bryce Young has looked better. He's looked better. But that was still ill-advised. Don't do that. Don't trade those picks. Don't trade that player for Bryce Young because you got that wrong. And C.J. Stroud, although he's taken a step back this year, has looked good. And it'll be interesting to see what type of noise they can make down the stretch and if they can do anything in a playoff situation. 617-779-0985. What do you do with Gerard Mayo? I keep him. I just think it'd be hasty to just be prisoner of the moment, even though it's been this bad, and just kick him to the curb. I wouldn't do it. I would try to make it work again. Wasn't Mayo the guy that wanted Drake May initially? Wasn't he the first one on the staff to be pushing for May? You got to get that cleaned up. There has to be one voice. If the ownership wants to meddle, that's where you do it. Make sure everyone understands what role they're in, and you have one voice that leads the football team. And you let Elliot Wolf deal with the drafting and the prospects and the scouting, and the head coach makes the call on what quarterback plays when. and you put Alex Van Pelt in a room or teach him you hire somebody that could teach him to draw up some plays. Can I throw a name at you? Because I think they need to move on from the defensive coordinator. Let me throw a name at you. In the spirit of emulating what the Kansas City Chiefs have, a defensive coordinator that's a stud, that's not going to ever become a head coach again, that's there for the long haul and enjoying what he's doing and where he's doing it. Would you ever be interested? Because I would be at least open to the conversation. If they get rid of DeMarcus Covington, would you ever be interested in getting a veteran presence, a man that will certainly calm down the room, the adult in the room, and bringing back to the NFL Rex Ryan? Would you be interested in that as defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots? I'd be interested in that. I'd be for it. I just think that would be a step up. I think he'd be hungry. I loved his defenses when he played, even though it pissed me off when he went up against Brady. He was as good as anybody against Brady. I would entertain Rex Ryan. I would entertain Robert Saleh. That'd be another name. I'd be all for that. Veteran guys that have been around, and then you figure out what you're going to do offensively or what. But you cannot run it back. You cannot run it back. I mean, I'm waiting for the last 3 games to occur. You cannot run it back. 617-779-0985. Mark Dondero on the Joe Murray Show, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
I was saying to open the show, I missed, when these games down the stretch, these games post-Thanksgiving used to mean something. It's interesting, to kind of think about some of the things that are going on and where the league. I mean, I think the Kansas City Chiefs, for one, have an interesting scenario in front of them. Okay, and it's funny for people like Nick Wright, who's on Fox Sports. You could see him already kind of getting nervous. You can hear it in his analysis that the dynasty is slipping away, and it is. It's what happens when you win 3 Super Bowls in 5 years or whatever it is. Starting to slip away. They don't look the same. I don't know who the Super Bowl favorite is right now. Who's your Super Bowl favorite right now? Right this second. Right now, the Chiefs. I still think they're the favorite because they play defense. They know how to win. They have a quarterback, and they're probably going to be healthier in a few weeks than they've been. Now, that doesn't mean they haven't looked more vulnerable than I can remember, and they remind me right now of the Patriots circa 2006. If I had to predict what this Chiefs team is going to be in the playoffs, that's exactly what I would predict. I would predict they'll get the 2 seed. Maybe Mahomes, he's a little more banged up. He is expected to play against the Texans. Maybe they find a way to get the 2 seed because Buffalo, who has the tiebreaker against them, finds a way to get the 1 seed. I could see Kansas City winning, a wild card round game, winning a second round game in dramatic fashion over a team that a lot of people thought would beat them, the Ravens. Give me another team in the AFC that might beat them. Not the Bills, because they'll play the Bills in the championship game. A team that they could have a good win over, and just when you think that the dynasty is done, it comes surging back in the form of this great win in the playoffs. Maybe it's over a team like Houston. That'd be a good team, though they're playing Houston this weekend. Baltimore, Houston, something like that. Dramatic win. And then they go to Buffalo and lose in the AFC Championship game. I could see that happening. And it's finally Josh Allen and the Bills' time to go back to the Super Bowl. I could see that happening. I love the Lions. I'm worried. I'm just worried that they're not quite healthy enough. And I know other things, Dan Campbell, they're going to eat your kneecaps and all this. I just think they're too banged up. They have 23 people on injured reserve. That's a ton. They got to fix that. Too many people out, and that's hurting them. And I'm not sure that's going to be able to, because especially the NFC looks like it's surging a little bit. There are teams in the NFC that are playing better now, and it looks like that conference isn't as weak as I thought it was maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. The Lions obviously are a threat. The Philadelphia Eagles, for much of this year, I did not see as a legitimate threat. They're a legitimate threat. They could win the Super Bowl. Legit. I'm not ready to go there with Sam Darnold, but they've put together a regular season, the Vikings have, that warrant our respect. So that's a team nobody's going to want to play. They play defense. They move the ball. They've got the best receiver in the game. I don't expect them to go to the Super Bowl, but they're a team that you're going to have to account for, and they are legit. And then the other team is the Green Bay Packers. That is a legitimate team that's been hardened by a lot of the games they've played this year in a very good division. There are some legitimate teams coming out of that NFC North and the Eagles that could easily win the Super Bowl over the AFC representative this year. I worry about a team like the Ravens defense. I worry about the Texans in general. I just think they're not quite as locked in as they were a year ago, even though they're still 9-5. And call me in 2 weeks. I do not buy the Pittsburgh Steelers. 10-4 have looked good, but I don't buy them. I think they'll give a team problems in a playoff game, but I don't see them making a legitimate run. I don't see them as a Super Bowl team, Super Bowl contender. Hell no. Miami, nobody in the AFC East other than Buffalo is anything. So get them out of there. Cincinnati, I was hoping they're not going to be anything. I mean, right now, the Chargers are the other team, because I'm not going to rely on Denver and Bo Nix. The Chargers are the other team that could be interesting. Not a Super Bowl team necessarily, but Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, guys that have been in the playoffs before. I think they could make a little bit of noise that could make it interesting if they got hot. They play defense. It's a good defensive team. It's a good division they're playing in. They've been hardened over the course of the year. Chiefs, Broncos, they're all good teams. Broncos 9-5. They're ahead of them. I'm not taking them seriously, though. If Cincinnati could find a way, and they're behind Miami, they're behind Miami's nothing, Indy's nothing. If Cincinnati, I don't know how they do it, but if they could find a way to get in at, say, 9-8, I mean, I just want to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs with how he's been playing this year. I want to see him in there. It's a quarterback that's proven he can win. Their defense hasn't been good, but I want to see Joe Burrow try to play off of his success in the regular season in the postseason. It's not going to be easy because the remaining schedule for Cincinnati is Cleveland at home, tough game, divisional game. Denver at home, tough team, also fighting for a playoff spot. And then at Pittsburgh, the class of that division right now. Not going to be easy. But if you could win those 3 games, get to 9-8, generate a little momentum, and then go into the playoffs, Joe Burrow playing the way he's playing this year, with all the experience that him and Chase have and a lot of guys on that roster, I want them in. I want to see them in. I want to see them in a matchup against the Chiefs, in a matchup against the Bills. I want to see that. I have no use for even Denver. No use for Denver. No use for certainly Indianapolis. No use for any of those teams. Give me the Ravens. Give me the Chargers. That's fine. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, I want to see how he handles a playoff situation this time around. But there's still some things that, I don't know, they need to fix. They need to find out in terms of who the real contenders are that I'm waiting to find out. Because the NFC has some. Buffalo is certainly one. But I just Kansas City with that defense, man. I'm still defense wins championships. No other defense has proven to me that they're capable of getting it done when it matters the most. And that is why, until further notice, until I know that he's really hurt, the team that I will ride with is Kansas City. Defense, quarterback, experience, getting a little healthier. Until further notice, that's the team for me. That is the favorite to win the AFC for me, even over Buffalo. Even if they have to go to Buffalo. I need to see their defense step up and rise to the level that's going to allow them to have postseason success. It just doesn't work. I don't believe it still. Even in 2024, going on 25, it doesn't work. You have to have good quality defense. That's why the team, I think, I think the Eagles, just because of health and the way they play defense, is probably a better bet right now than the Lions. And I still worry. I know they've got a great offensive line. I worry about Jared Goff if he gets pushed off his spot even a little bit. He's not the same quarterback. Until somebody knocks off the Chiefs, though, I'm not buying it. They're still the team. They're the class of the league. And their defense, I know they've won ugly. It hasn't looked good. The symptoms would indicate that they're going to fall in the playoffs. 2005 Patriots at Denver, 2006 Patriots at Indy. Whatever you want to say, one of these teams will get it. Maybe it's Buffalo, maybe it's the Ravens. But until I see another defense really emerge in the AFC, I can't take you there. It's still going to, I will be riding every game with Kansas City. Not rooting for them, but I'll go with them. If I had to bet, I'd bet on them. So I see Mahomes knocked out and that defense tail off, that's what's up. 617-779-0985. The Patriots are a mess right now. How do you fix it? I'm Mark Dondero on the Joe Murray Show. Let's get a headlines. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots are back on the practice field today as they get set for their matchup with the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo on Sunday. 4:25 is the kick. team or the person. Totally out of their control. So drafting Tom Brady in the 6th round wasn't really a gift because you know that was within your control. So I'll preface it by saying that it was within your control. The Tuck rule, not really a gift. That was the rule. So it wasn't really a gift you were given. Yeah, it worked out in your favor. It wasn't really a gift. 4 of the greatest gifts that Boston sports was ever given. And here's what they are. Number 1, I have as the play call that was made, and this one's obvious, by Pete Carroll and who Darrell Bevell, obviously, Super Bowl 49, to throw the pass. That was something totally out of your control. Now, I actually didn't mind the call fully at the time because I knew what they were doing. They had one timeout they had used. They were trying to get a pass off, and then they could have comfortably run it twice with 2 timeouts left. If that pass fell incomplete, okay, you tried. Then you can comfortably run it twice. You had the 2 timeouts. I got what they were doing, but still a gift. You didn't have to do that. You could have been more organized. You could have run it 3 times with the 2 timeouts and made it work. And throwing that ball there was an absolute gift. That's one of the greatest gifts ever given to a professional sports organization. Now, credit to Malcolm Butler for making the play, but that is a gift given to the Patriots. That's number 1. Number 2, maybe an underrated one. I thought it was an absolute gift when Mariano Rivera, in the 9th inning of Game 4 of the 2004 American League Championship Series, walked Kevin Millar. And I understand that Millar had something to do with that. He didn't have to swing at the pitches. He laid off some tough pitches, fine. But the fact that he was able to, the fact that Mariano Rivera, who for years was as dominant of a closer, of a reliever as you'll ever see, and had 1 pitch to worry about. He threw 1 pitch. And it's not like, obviously Millar he had some pop, he had some home runs. It's not like he was pitching to this guy who was elite, just Shohei. To walk him the way he did, was it on 4 pitches? I don't remember. What a gift from above that he walked Kevin Millar to put the tying run on base, which obviously set the scene for Dave Roberts in the steal, and you know what happened. It was history. But the walk was a gift. Even when I watch it today, I still can't believe he couldn't find the strike zone. 3rd one. Back to the Patriots. Kyle Shanahan calling a pass play. Okay, on 2nd down, after the Atlanta Falcons in the 4th quarter of Super Bowl 51, up 8, made it down to the 22-yard line of the Patriots. Now, I don't remember how much time was left, but it was late enough in the 4th quarter. A field goal ended the game. They didn't have time for 2 possessions. They were on the 22-yard line. On 1st down, they ran it. They lost a yard. The Falcons were on, it was 2nd and 11 from the 23-yard line. And they passed and they got sacked. And then the next play, because of the sack, they threw it again, holding, and before you know it, they are out of field goal range. The fact that they threw it on the 2nd down was one of the greatest gifts that the Patriots at any organization has ever gotten, because all you had to do there was run it twice and kick the field goal. It would have been long. Maybe you would have gained yards. Just run it. Just keep running. You're on the 23. That's a 40-yard field goal. Nothing. And they couldn't get it done. They passed. They got sacked. Oh, my gosh, what a turn of events. Devastating for them, and a gift given to the Patriots. And the 4th one, the Boston Celtics getting what they got from the Brooklyn Nets when they traded Paul Pierce and Jason Terry and Kevin Garnett. Now, maybe you could argue that's not exactly, that was kind of within their control, but they didn't have to get what they got. The Brooklyn Nets didn't have to offer the picks that they offered, which obviously turned into the capital that got you Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and changed the organization completely. That was a gift from the Nets that they were giving to those aging veterans. giving the haul that they gave up to make that deal. That's a huge gift, and that is on the list. So if you have anything else, if I missed anything else, there's obviously other things you could talk about, separate plays, transactions, Randy Moss. I don't know if you didn't win a championship here, if that was a gift, but those are my 4 gifts. Brian is in Fitchburg on Malcolm Butler. Hey, Brian.
You can say that technically, Mark, you can say that the trade that sent Kevin Garnett to us for a bag of pucks was technically a gift also from Kevin McHale.
Sure.
But hey, I got to kind of disagree with you in regard to the Malcolm Butler play. It was public knowledge that Marshawn Lynch was going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and I think that was if Marshawn Lynch runs us in, which if he ran 3 or 4 straight times, I was going in. If he runs it in, that's a bag of money for Marshawn Lynch that they did not want to pay out. And I think that Carroll made the decision of let's make someone else the hero. That way that, Marshawn Lynch they're not held, over the barrels with Marshawn Lynch.
Thanks for the call, Brian. That's a good point. That could have been the case. I still think, I don't remember exactly what the situation. I remember watching in real time and understanding the play call. Because I remember them, and maybe Brian's right, but I remember they had the 2 timeouts and they had 4 downs, then 3 after the Hightower tackle to get the touchdown. And I understood them throwing because if you got the incomplete pass, then you were comfortably able to run the ball twice for the touchdown. You could take the timeout, you could run it again if you had to. So I understood it in real time, and that's what I thought they were doing. Maybe I wouldn't have. I don't like that call. I mean, what I would have done is I would have rolled out and given Russell Wilson a pass run option type of thing, and I would not have thrown to the middle of the field. Because, anything could have happened there. A ball could have gone off of a helmet, tipped up in the air. That was not the play there. I hated that play call. You want something that's wide open, unequivocal, no questions asked. But I understood why they called a throw. Just not in the middle of the field. Cody in Nashua on the Bruins. Hey, Cody.
Hey, the Vancouver Bruins Stanley Cup, we were dead to rights. Nathan Horton gets hit, the fencing response, and here we are. Our only championship in my lifetime for the Bruins. I'll shut up and let you guys talk.
I forgot about that. Is that when they were squirting the ice on the water, or am I thinking of something else? I don't remember, but see, I'm just so locked in on that run being, Tim Thomas and pumping the tires. I don't remember one specific play. I mean, maybe you could argue the Horton thing. He did have the overtime winner against the Canadians. They were down a key player. I don't know if I'd put it on the level of some of those others, but sure. I was trying to think of one for the Bruins. I couldn't think. I mean, maybe, Zdeno Chara was he turned out to be better than I think people thought when they said, maybe not. I don't remember what my feeling was when they brought him in 2006. But, they had an opportunity there. And they took advantage of it mainly because of Tim Thomas. 617-779-0985. Mark Dondero in for Joe Murray on The Joe Murray Show.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5.
Back here on the Joe Murray Show. 617-779-0985. Ken is in Jamaica Plain. Hey, Ken.
Hey, guys. Great show. Love listening to you guys. So I actually got two of them. One, obviously, thank you to the Twins for just letting Poppy go out into the ether. We just snatched him up, and he turned out to be one of the greatest, clutch hitters in the history of the game. And also, side note, thanks for Mo Lewis. I was a Bledsoe fan back in the day, but if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Brady. So two great gifts that were given to us just out of nowhere.
That's a great point, Ken, and I hate to, I'm not calling Drew Bledsoe's injury a gift, but I understand what he's talking about and how Mo Lewis doing what he did opened the door for Brady and all those things. Skaz, can you talk? Because Skaz had a couple good ones that I didn't think of. Give me one of your better ones, Skaz, or two, both of them.
Yeah, so the first two that came to mind for me, and I know this probably isn't a popular one, today, nowadays with the state of the Red Sox, but John Henry buying the Red Sox was the biggest gift to Red Sox fans. Just a franchise that was in desperate need of someone willing to actually spend money and get them finally over the hump. I know that sentiment has changed nowadays, but they weren't winning without an owner like John Henry, and he was that guy in the early 2000s. And then the other one, and you helped me remember his name, but D. Ford being offsides for the Chiefs. Just
a huge one that I forgot about.
Absolute gift for the Patriots.
Want to talk about the game was lost. That was it. It was an interception. It really had nothing to do with it's not, he didn't throw the interception because of the penalty. He threw that interception on his own. But that one little toe that was over the line saved the season for the Patriots. Absolute huge gift. It didn't win. It wasn't in the Super Bowl. But based on what happened after that, it was as big as the play that was in the Super Bowl. And for Brady to beat Mahomes in that spot and do that was huge. But the John Henry one's a good point. And you're right. Nobody wants to talk about that now. I don't want to talk about that now, really. But it's a shame that he is as despised or disliked as he is based on what he did here. I mean, the 4 championships. 4 championships. And it really, for crying out loud, what we're seeing with with Bob Kraft too, this is going to go in a bad direction, I feel like. And for John Henry and Bob Kraft, who combined to bring to the city, 10 championships? They're going to be as disliked as anybody that's come through here by the time it's all said and done, it looks like. I mean, how did we get here? Just hanging on too long? I mean, that's the way people look at it now. I mean, we're getting calls tonight on this show about Robert Kraft. Too cheap, too this. I mean, he's the guy that he was at the foundation of the entire turnaround, even before the Brady Belichick era. Now, he didn't hire Bill Parcells, but he was around. He was a part of some of those draft classes. He's the one that freaking got Terry Glenn. Pete Carroll, but he brought Belichick back, and Belichick's the guy that drafted Brady. It's an incredible thing that those guys are not going to be viewed in the same light as other legendary owners. I mean, based on what they've done here for a city that in the 90s, when they took over, or in the early 2000s, they were basically still starved for championships. I mean, the Patriots had won one by the time I think John Henry took over. They were starving. The Red Sox were certainly starving. The D. Ford one, that is a huge gift. That's definitely right there on the list. That's a huge one. I mean, because especially that play, if it doesn't happen, you don't win. So, major play there.
I don't know if would you consider the Edelman catch a gift?
No, because he's too much in control of that. He made a great play.
That's how I feel about it.
It was a lucky catch. But he made a great play. I'm talking about something that was really, like D. Ford lining up a little offside is really totally out of your control. You didn't make him do that. So that's why that one fits perfectly. John Henry, I could see what but you didn't know who was bidding. You didn't know how that was going to go down, and he ended up being the perfect guy at that time. And I'm sure there's others I just can't think of.
Wick spending his dad's money was a pretty good gift for the Celtics.
Yeah, or his dad letting Wick run amok.
Yeah,
we'll take it. Or another one I thought of, Skaz, but I wasn't sure if this qualified in terms of what happened in the 2017 draft. Wasn't the Celtics traded out of Philly being so infatuated with Markelle Fultz? That was sort of a gift. Like, even though I'm giving Danny Ainge some credit, knowing, or I feel like thinking that Philly was going to do what they did and wanting Tatum all along and knowing he'd still be able to get him, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. That felt like a gift to me.
Yeah, even, just the fact that the Lakers were so set on Lonzo Ball, too.
Ball.
They just, that fell perfectly in their lap.
So there's a little bit of a gift associated with that. And I just went with the trade. The Garnett trade that the caller brought up, that's another one. That was sort of a gift, too. But at least, I guess I brought up the trade, so that's fair. You could definitely say that. That changed the Celtics, and that really put them over the top because they weren't winning with just Pierce. They needed Garnett. Maybe even Pierce and Garnett could have won the championship. They probably needed Ray Allen too, but they definitely needed Kevin Garnett. They weren't winning with Pierce and Allen. That would have just been Pierce and Antoine Walker all over again. 617-779-0985. Let's get to headlines. We'll be right back. We'll reset the top of the show where we were talking about, unfortunately, where we are with the Patriots and their coaching staff. Where do they go from here, and how did we get here? Mark Dondero in for Joe Murray on the Joe Murray Show.
WBZ-FM and HD Boston.
Patriots!
From the opening kickoff to the final play.
Touchdown!
Your home of the pass.
Yes.
98.5 The Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group Station. Sports Hub headlines.
Patriots back on the practice field today. Ahead of their game in Buffalo over the weekend against the Bills. Currently big underdogs. It was Patriots plus 14 last check. That'll be Sunday, 4:25 in Orchard Park. Christian Barmore, he's been placed on the non-football injury list with recurring symptoms from the blood clots he had faced earlier in the season. So they'll be without him and could be for the rest of the season. Celtics, they're back in action tonight, currently hosting the Chicago Bulls. And the Celtics at the end of one, up 25-21 on Chicago. Kristaps Porzingis, who is back in action tonight so far in the game. Well, Jason Tatum leading the way with 12 points. Porzingis, 0 points, -1. He's got 2 rebounds on the night, so not making a huge impact at this point. Celtics currently 2 of 5 from Tatum for 3, and that's about it. Nobody else has hit a 3 other than Peyton Pritchard, 1 for 2. The Bruins getting set out, and we'll get to them in about a half an hour, out in Edmonton to take on the Oilers. Jeremy Swayman in net tonight. Bruins going for their 3rd straight victory. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Mark Dondero for Boston's Home for Sports. 98.5, the Sports Hub.
There we go. Boom. I win. Boom. Yeah.
It's so funny. We've got a passion for Boston sports.
Get angry.
98.5 the Sports Hub.
In Nashville, let's talk to Tim. Hey, Tim.
Mark, I want to talk to you about Kraft and how he actually polluted the water with the 5 year before telling Mayo that he was going to be the successor.
Okay.
That alone, weighing on the organization, would cause trouble no matter what. And my second thing I want to ask you is about the GM. If you were in charge, would you trust Elliott to pick the top 3 picks? Because the way that I'm looking at it, it would be 3 linemen in their top 3 picks, trading up and getting the best 3 linemen available. What do you think?
So first of all, thanks for the call, Tim. I would not move off of Elliott Wolf. So, I mean, I guess I'm avoiding the question, do I trust him? Yes, I do. I'm not going to fire him just because one draft didn't go the way I had hoped. And by the way, he still got that pick right of Drake May. Now, yes, maybe my mother-in-law could have made that pick, but he didn't trade out. He did take the chance and drafted that quarterback. I just think they need to change structurally a little bit. Like, you can't have a million cooks in the kitchen. Drake May should have been starting, and Gerard Mayo should have been the one making that decision. Get Elliott Wolf out of those conversations and let him focus on scouting, okay? I would take a serious look at who's around me, because unlike Bill Belichick, I want Elliott Wolf to be okay with doing what he has to do to get the people around him that know what they're doing, okay? And if that's not Matt Groh, then go find somebody. You need somebody in the building that can draft a wide receiver. You need somebody in the building that's capable of doing those things and making those picks, or nothing's getting turned around. So I'm after one bad draft. I mean, we just talked about with Bill Belichick. His first draft, he got J.R. Redmond. Great. It was Brady. It was all about Tom Brady. That's what. And then after that, he picked up some momentum. Then it was Richard Seymour in 2001, and Matt Light, I think, was 2001 in the second round. Okay, all of a sudden he starts hitting on picks, and there you go. That's what has to happen. So I would give Elliott Wolf one more go at it. I liked what I'd heard from him. He had some success in Green Bay getting guys at the position the Patriots need. He's going to have another top pick. In terms of the line, they need linemen. I'm okay if they want to draft linemen. I still think they need a guy on the outside, a receiver, or an offensive player that defensive coordinators stay up at night about. You don't get that because the left tackle's really good. And as important of a position as that is, I need some more than just the left tackle to be good. I'm okay with B players along the offensive line. You can't have D players like they have now. But if they want a lot of B plus, Matt Light was a perfect player. He wasn't the best offensive lineman. Give me Nate Solder. Nate Solder is fine. He was never the best left tackle in football. He was good. He was solid enough. He did the job well enough. That's all I need. Give me that and go from there. And I want to reiterate, while we have the chance before we have to go to Bruins, this is why in the summer, back in August, I was so upset that Drake May was not named the starter. It was not because I was obsessed with Drake May getting in there and playing with the new toy. That's not what this was about. This was about figuring out if the coaching staff was competent, considering they were in a lot of different new roles that they'd never been in before, and that Gerard Mayo was a rookie head coach. The fact that it unfolded in the summer the way it did, when it was clear that Drake May was the better player, when it was supposed to be a competition, then it wasn't, and to have it end the way it ended was a direct symptom of dysfunction. And that is why I was so upset. We could see it. We could see where this was trending, and we definitely could see that the New England Patriots did not have the infrastructure in June, July, August, or any of those months to put Jacoby Brissett in there and put Drake May, the number 3 overall pick, on the bench. They weren't good enough. They weren't going to be able to sustain that, and they were going to get put in a spot. And they did. And they looked bad, and they've looked bad ever since. Now, it's not just that decision, but that was the first symptom that I saw. Dysfunction. And guess what? Ever since then, that's what we've dealt with, and now here we are just before Christmas having the conversation, Felger and Maz having the conversation, Beadle having the conversation with Zoe. What do the Patriots do with Gerard Mayo? Is it on the table that if they play really poorly in Buffalo and get smoked, that he'll be gone on Monday? Merry Christmas. Is that on the table? I don't think it is, but the fact that we're having that conversation is bad enough. John is in the car. Hey, John.
So, Dondero, let me get this straight. You want to keep Wolf around, even though he had a bad draft where he, picked May, he didn't trade out of that. You want to keep him around because he's a good scout. But the free agent moves that he made for the offensive line, like he picked guys that didn't play left tackle to play left tackle, and that worked out like the same way it works out for the Red Sox when they pick like number 5 guys to be their aces. Like it doesn't go well. So I don't understand why we're keeping Wolf around if he can't draft, and like he isn't really that good of a scout either, because the team he put together in free agency kind of sucked. Because even the one guy who's supposedly good, who was going to be like, oh, he's going to be a tackle, doesn't actually play tackle. He's a better guard than he is actually a tackle. So I'm confused on that. And I get rid of Mayo 100% because he's learning on the job too. I think we complained about Matt Patricia last time we had somebody learning on the job. So I don't understand why we're doing this again, this all learning on the job stuff. So
I appreciate the call, and that's hard to argue with, John. The draft was inexcusable. Chuk Okorafor was inexcusable. But I look, maybe it's me. Maybe it's the problem is I just feel like once you go down the road of 1 year, fire him, 1 year, one bad draft, fire him. That is as dysfunctional as you can get. And maybe I'm just not ready to embrace that. Perhaps that's the best thing for the team. Blow it out, cut off the Band-Aid or whatever, cut your losses and move on. But I've seen it happen where you do it better the second time around. Now, don't get me wrong. If you do it twice and it's not good, then that's a different conversation and everybody's gone next time. I just wouldn't do it yet. I just wouldn't. I don't think that's that's not best practice. That's not what you want as a business. That's not what you want as an organization, to be known for somebody that's panics like that. I'm prisoner of this moment too. I'm pissed off like everybody. I mean, this has been inexcusable how far back they've gone. They're worse than they were last year, despite the fact that the quarterback play is much better. That's tough to do. Really disappointing. But I don't want to be one of those organizations that just fires guys. Fired, get out. You got to give them another chance. I would fire the defensive coordinator because that doesn't affect Drake May, and it's been so bad. The regression has been so bad. And he's not high enough up to really rattle the cage of dysfunction of the organization. It's not a good look, but at least, you can't run it back. What a disappointing year for Elliott Wolf. Really elite level disappointment with what he did in this draft. And we'll see, maybe Layden Robinson can turn into a guy that can get on the field. But you have to absolutely have a baller draft next year. It has to be not even I'm talking about 2 Pro Bowlers next year. Not next year, but 2 guys that end up in a Pro Bowl. Because the seat will scorch. I mean, it will be as hot as you can find going into next year. That's for certain. And there better be tangible things that we look at as the Patriots go into next year. If they keep these guys where you're like, this is different. This is what I'm talking about. That better happen early and often. Because it's hard to argue. Nothing has gotten better this year. But you can still improve from year 1 to year 2, and things can change drastically if you hit on some picks. And we'll see if Drake May is a big factor this offseason and how he leads. 617-779-0985. If you want to call in, do it now because we're going to Bruins and getting set for their game at Edmonton at the bottom of the hour. Mark Dondero here on the Joe Murray Show. In for Joe.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
I'm as upset as anybody. There's been a lot wrong with the New England Patriots this year, and it really has started with this regime. And the biggest disappointment, you had a chance after Bill Belichick, a legend, which is hard to replace. I get that. But he had it. It was so bad. I mean, it was so bad last year. They had to let Belichick go. They had to. The fact that you couldn't capitalize at all on how bad it was last year and turn it into anything positive this year, that is devastating. And it's just a huge missed opportunity. And now we're talking about potential replacements and Mike Vrabel. And listen, I like Mike Vrabel. I actually think it'd be better. I think he'd be better than Gerard Mayo. I think he's a better coach. I mean, look, he's taken teams, and this is what I really value. He took a team with a not great quarterback to the AFC Championship game. Now, he wasn't some quarterback whisperer necessarily, but he took him there, and I just think he has a better attitude. I like his swag. I like when he came in here. I mean, I didn't like it. But when he came in here and they beat the Patriots in that last game that Tom Brady played in, they were mocking the hyena video that Brady put out and all those things. Like, that's the type of attitude, the personality I want my head coach to have. He doesn't need to be friends with the media and doing all these things. I would still want an offensive mind as the head coach. But with that being said, if you were going to try to sell me on Jock, he's older now. He's not old, but he's older now. He could come in here and you know, he could create some stability at that position for the Patriots if he wanted to come back here. We saw what he did with Mac Jones, and the last time I saw him with Mac Jones, it was pretty good. So that's a guy that I feel like, hey, that's a guy that I think could be useful in this situation with a young quarterback. And then I figure out what to do on the defensive side of the ball. You already heard me say about Rex Ryan. That's just, I'm half joking. I think Robert Saleh, who Alex Barth brought up earlier tonight to me, I think that'd be a better option, more realistic option. But there's probably other names out there that wouldn't be bad options either. I don't know. I mean, go to college. I mean, there's got to be a defensive mind out there you could bring in that you think highly of. I'd probably lean towards a more experienced veteran defensive kind of coach that has NFL experience. But, I mean, I'm just not ready to move off of them. I don't think at this juncture you go one and done with a guy that you had hyped up for so long, that you tabbed so early in his first year. I think there is ways that he can improve in a second year. I mean, Mayo was the one that wanted May in there, right? If that's the case, maybe he knew a little bit more. Maybe he's trying, maybe in his second year, he'll be a little bit more assertive. Not be so much of a friend to everybody, but be a little bit more assertive and try to, emphasize his position and do and the Patriots have to change that. If the owners want to meddle in one thing, they have to create the structure organizationally that's going to work. You cannot have this many cooks in the kitchen with all these voices and people chiming in on what the quarterbacks. I mean, it's too collaborative. You have people, give their assessments, suggestions, and then Gerard Mayo makes the decision. Nobody else. You can suggest something. Like if my family's trying to go to Disney World or on vacation somewhere, and I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, they can suggest hotels they want to stay at or a hotel they've heard about or something they want. That's a suggestion that I'm happy to take. But baby, you're not deciding what we do. You're not going to be a part of that decision. You can suggest something. I'll take it into consideration if I feel like it. But I make that decision. Mommy makes that decision. The adults make that decision, and that's what the Patriots have to be. They have to be an organization where the head coach, you can suggest something about the quarterback if you have a thought, Elliott, or whatever his name is, McAdoo, But the conversation and the decision is ultimately about what Gerard Mayo wants to do. That's what it's about. And I don't understand why it's anything else. It shouldn't be anything else other than that creates mixed messages, that puts the head coach in a weird spot. Ooh, am I not being collaborative enough? Am I not, no. You need